It's Jay Souder, and welcome to the Promised Land podcast, where we're talking about the three M's: how to magnetize your audience, the right methodology to actually get them to the promised land that you offer, and how to be the right mentor, as well as what to look for a mentor. So today's guest, I'm super stoked about. She's made a huge impact in my business. This is Natalie Lavelock. She is a visionary leader, faith-based business strategist. She has Natalie Lavelock Coaching and Consulting, the spirit-led entrepreneur, and since 2016, she's helped kingdom-minded coaches and speakers build highly profitable businesses, generating consistent five, six, and seven-figure revenues. And she's helped us. We hired her to come on. So full disclosure, Natalie works with us. She helps us out as well. And she has her own company separate. Rooted in faith, courage, excellence, leadership, and truth, Natalie helps business leaders bridge the gap between their vision and success, equipping them with the strategy, confidence, and leadership skills needed to build thriving kingdom center businesses while staying true to their values and fulfilling their greatest purpose. So, Natalie, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us and all that good stuff.
Hey, Jase, thank you so much. Thank you.
We almost have to pretend like we don't know each other. Well, hello.
No, we don't at all.
So let's jump in. What do you think is, whether it's something we do through our company or what you do in your company, what is your secret sauce to getting people, as I like to call it, like across the industry, like your methodology? What do you think is the secret sauce to actually having people be successful with what you do?
Hmm. Well, I think probably the most important thing
Hmm.
that primes someone for success is they have to be ready, right? How many times do we lead that proverbial horse to water, but
Yeah.
then you can't make them drink. You can't actually make them do the thing that they need to do in order to get to where they want to get. So they have to be ready. They have to be willing to take that next step. And sometimes that's hard because sometimes they're butting up against things that are scary. They're butting up against things that have caused them pain in the past. They're butting up against, old. Well, in this company, we use the word conditioning a lot. Some companies might say, it's like bondage, you know. But it's old things that they're coming up against that they didn't think they would have to deal with in order to get to the next level, and now it's right here in their face, and they're going, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready to deal with this." So, being ready and willing is probably one of the most important things. I think another place that business owners sometimes miss opportunities is in looking at the heart of the matter. We see the superficial manifestation of things. We see money going up and down and up and down, and there's no consistency. We see um people kind of like butting heads with one another. We see all kinds of different superficial things, but it's taking the time to seek the heart of the matter, what's really going on underneath. And that takes time, and that takes patience, and that takes vulnerability. And that's really hard. It can be really hard and challenging for business owners and teams alike. So, but I think once you can really understand what's going on with the heart, it gives you a place of connection. It gives you a place of understanding. And instead of having all these grating emotions, you get to have more compassion for one another and really truly solve the issue instead of reacting to that superficial whatever's going on.
It's not
And
that you've always been super genteel with dealing with customer service things. You're a lot more gentle than I am, for sure.
Mhm.
So now I see where it comes from. So for those of you listening, um, a quick story. When I started doing a keto, they interviewed me for why I wanted to study, and I give my answers, and then the master goes, the sensei, the main guy goes, I do this for Jesus Christ, and then he looks at me and he goes, you don't have to believe, but you have to be okay. And so we want this podcast to be accessible to everyone who wants to make a difference in the coaching business. And you don't have to believe like us. Just please be okay with us. Let us have your beliefs. So Natalie and I are strong professing Christians. And you said something, Natalie, that stuck with me. You mentioned bondage. So one of the things we that I really believe in, and this is why we're talking about methodology. We talk about the third island, that we have to have a breakthrough island. And in Christian circles, they talk about bondage, and that could be where the enemy has come in and laid down a lie, or the enemy is constantly attacking, or the enemy has a demon or something attached to someone. And I think that could be true. And I think, unfortunately for non-Christians, there's a bunch of non-Christians out there who are like sitting ducks, really, because they have no stinking clue what's going on for them. Also, I think there's a whole bunch of Christians out there who um, haven't gone inside and done the work or worked with someone to do this. So the way I look at it is play every ace. If you really want to get somewhere, do I don't want to call it secular because I think it all comes out of Jesus's work, but do the work on your subconscious programming, do the work on your relationships, do the work on your spiritual health, do the work to get rid of the enemy, like hit it at all the levels in order to get free. Because the enemy has no interest in us succeeding. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But then also the enemy, even if you don't believe that there's an enemy, if you just read books like The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, he contextualizes resistance as a living entity. And I think there's a real truth to that.
I think so too, Jase. And I think a lot of times, especially in the Christian communities, we give the devil a lot of credit for things that's nothing more than our selfish flesh. It's we want what we want when we want it, how we want it. And by golly, if we don't get it, we're gonna have a little hissy fit about it,
Yep.
right? And so yeah, it's mind, body, and spirit is what it takes to be whole and thriving.
Yeah. Few things drive me more batty than when I hear people go, "Oh, it must be God's will." I really don't think it's God's will you sit on your ass and expect a different result. I think it's God's will you take massive action, like massive action. And I could see some areas of my life that I do and don't. So let's talk about your promised land. What is the promised land where you take your clients? Where do you take people in Natalie Lavelock coaching consulting?
Great question. I think really the bottom line of the promised land is I help business owners go from feeling like they're carrying the weight of their entire business on their own, on their shoulders, to leading with peace, purpose, and having a deep, powerful presence. So, um, a lot of times when we're first working together, it's like they feel like their business isn't where it should be, their money isn't where it should be, their team isn't functioning the way it should be, they're overworked, they're frustrated, they've got all these decisions to make, they're tired of making all the decisions. And if they're really being honest, they're probably feeling a little burned out and like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Hmm.
I don't know how much longer I can keep this thing afloat. And so after we work together, it's really awesome to get to see them feeling like this sense of relief
Hmm.
because they know that their team's at least in the same boat as them, right? Everybody's in the same boat. They're trusting that their team is all rowing in the same direction. Okay. Doesn't mean that somebody doesn't get off count once in a while with the row. You always have that one that goes a little stray every once in a while, but they're rowing in the same direction. And the business owner's freed up to be the captain of the ship again. And they're making more money, they're helping more people, and they're doing it from that place of peace and purpose. And so it's really cool to see someone, when you talk to them and they're just like, oh, I just don't know why this isn't working, but they've tried everything, they can't figure it out, they're exhausted. And then to watch them a few months later, like leading from that place of peace, from that place of confident authority, knowing that they're making a meaningful impact, and to watch them come alive again as their passion comes back and they know that they're truly living out their purpose.
Hmm.
That is absolute magic.
Nice. So how do you magnetize people? What's your secret sauce to getting people to you?
So I have to laugh about this because of the loop that you kind of opened a little bit a while ago about I really don't think it's God's purpose for people to just sit on their butts and do nothing, right? And the irony in that is that a little over a year ago, God told me to stop marketing my business. I had a multi six-figure business, and I was getting ready to do a contract for four really large events of my. I shouldn't say really large. They were large to me, probably not large to some singer that packs a stadium or something like that, but it was a big deal to me, and I really felt God say stop. And so for the past year, I haven't been trying to magnetize anyone. But the funny thing is, Jase, the right ones keep showing up.
Mm.
And what I've learned is that deep calls to deep, even when you're at rest. And while I agree with you,
Hold
I
on
think
before you step. What does that mean?
deep calls to deep, um, it means that simply your way of being and the way you connect with people without being intentional. I'm trying to recruit you as a client. Like just your way of being connects with people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I just want to be in your presence more. So that beingness calls to the other beingness, even if you're in a place of rest. And I do think that the Lord calls us to seasons of rest, and he calls us to seasons of planting and sowing and reaping and all of those things. But
Well, it's not like you've been doing nothing though. You're working with us still, helping us do our things, and we're a pretty
yeah,
good client for you. And then the hospital also came and can you, by the way, not to get too far afield, but can you tell the story about um what made you shift into doing coaching and then what's happening now with you in the hospital? Like, your
ooh,
story, your step in faith story. Can you share that with everybody?
sure. So I'm a registered nurse by trade, and I spent almost 20 years working in corporate healthcare, designing programs and leading teams within the corporate healthcare realm. And there was a day that actually it had been building for a little while because like I just felt this stirring inside of me, and I knew something was going to be changing, but I didn't know what it was. And then one day, my boss walked into my office and she says, um, Natalie, I need to talk to you about something and I hope you'll consider our offer. I was like, well, that's a weird way to start a conversation. And she said, um, we'd like to offer you a management position.
Mm.
And at first I was like, it was something that I knew that I had wanted for a really long time. It was something that I had been working towards. I felt like, she'd kind of been grooming me for this. And so I was really super excited about that opportunity. And when I left, I was excited to come home and talk to my family about it. But when I left, there was something that hit me. And I realized that if I took this management position, my boys were still really little. I've got three boys. And I realized that if I take this management position, I'm going to be on call 24/7, 365. And I'm going to miss out on some of the most important moments of their lives because if the hospital calls, I've got to go. And it took me a little bit of time, but I finally realized that, you know what? They can find any nurse to be a manager of that department. But God gave me those three little boys, and I'm the only one that can be their mama. And so that it was a hard decision, Jase. I really wrestled and I cried and I prayed and fasted for days about it because I knew the weight of the impact of what that was going to mean for me and my family. Because what are we taught throughout school? We're trained and we're taught to become productive members of society and to climb the corporate ladder. And here was my opportunity to get the corner office with the window and the paycheck and the influence and the, all of those types of things, all the things that the world said is good. And yet deep in my spirit, I knew God was calling me to something else. I
Mm.
knew that he was calling me to take a leap of faith and to step out and to trust him with anything and everything I could ever possibly want or need. And the deepest desire of my heart has always been to please him. And so I was kind of like, oh my gosh, God, what are we doing? Right. And he left it up to me. He says, I'm giving you two choices. I'm giving you two opportunities. You've been praying for opportunity. You have the opportunity in the hospital, or you can go on this wild, crazy adventure with me. And I was like, I'm going to choose adventure with you. Right. And so I made the decision that I was going to leave my work as a nurse and I was going to start my own company. And at that time, the wild west of the coaching industry was still fairly fresh and new, and there were all these big promises around, you can earn six figures in 6 weeks or less. And I bought it. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And when I
Said
didn't
that. No,
make,
I'm just kidding. Just
what'd
don't.
you say?
I said, what coach said that? I'm just kidding.
When I didn't hit six figures in 6 weeks, I started looking at the bank account and it was going down and it was going down. And I knew we had a house payment coming up. And I wasn't sure how we were going to make our house payment. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Mm.
And it's in those moments where you've taken a big leap of faith and you're trusting God, and yet you haven't made it to that promised land yet. You're still taking the journey there. It's in those moments where the enemy attacks because you have a promise that hasn't been fulfilled
Mm.
and he is intent on stealing that promise from you. And so I'm trying to figure this out, and I start hearing things in my head and I'm thinking, who did I think I was? I mean, I'm just this small little farm girl from the little middle of nowhere. What do I know about growing a business? Like, I've worked for the hospital for 20 years. I've built programs. I built a business within the hospital, but that's totally different because you're playing with somebody else's money, not your own. Like, what do you know about business? And then those thoughts went to, those little boys you say you love so much?
Mm.
They're going to be homeless. What kind of mother would leave safety, security, paychecks, insurance, all of those types of things, and go off on this holly jolly little adventure with God while she has mouths to feed at home? You're going to lose your house. Your kids are going to starve. And it's going to be all your fault.
Mm.
Jase, that was heavy. That was crushing. It tested my faith. It tested my resolve. And I wish that I could say that in that moment, I just was like, Satan, just like, get behind me. But it took an act of God to get me to that place. And let me tell you what that was, because I don't know if I've told you this before or not.
Mm.
We were down to a week before the house payment was due. No idea how we were going to make that house payment. The oh shoot, severance that I'd gotten from the hospital when I left was gone. We'd used that up. And I was just like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And so I'm sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden my phone rings. And I pick it up, and they said, Mrs. Lavelock. And I said, yes. And they said, this is so and so. And we need to inform you that we made a mistake on your taxes a couple of years ago. And within the next 2 or 3 days, you should be getting a check for about $5,000 in the mail.
Wow.
And that was the moment, Jase. That was the moment where I really, really, really got that even if I can't see the promised land, even if I haven't put my feet on promised land territory, right? If I'm taking this leap of faith, the safest place I can ever fall is into the arms of my creator,
Hmm.
because he's not going to let me be destroyed. If I keep my faith in him, if I keep my eyes on him, he is my provider and he's going to take care of me. And that was the moment that pretty much all fear just dissipated, right?
Wow.
And it my mantra from that point forward was even if we lose our house, we've got family. Even if this happens, this is going to happen. Even if, like God's going to take care of us one way or another. And when you get to that place of unshakable faith, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, totally. You know, the part of the reason we name this to the promised land is every coach has their own promised land where they're taking their people. Yeah, health coaches, whatever that is, the client will look great, the client will feel great, their body's healthy, they have the vibrancy and aliveness to do whatever. Money coaches have a promise, whatever it is. And it's also because I really think being a coach and getting people to an amazing result is very much like when the tribe left Egypt and they were in a miserable position. They're like, get us out of here, which so many new coaching clients are. They're like, get us out of here. This sucks. And then they get into the journey and they're like, where's our food? Where's our water? We want to go back into slavery. And that's what some people do. They become
Yes.
coaching clients and then they bitch and moan and like, oh, and then fear takes over. They want to go back. And then you know what I just got? You have to be close to the promised land to actually see it, not just the idea of it, but to see it. And it wasn't until the tribe got really close that they were close enough to send in spies. And the spies could see it with their own eyes. And yet that's when they got the most fearful. And what was it? 10 out of 12 said, no, we can't do it. And so, in a very tangible way, when we're going for more in life, if we don't have the courage to step into it, well, then how can we ever have it? I mean, it's simple math, right? If you don't drive your car across town, you're not going to be across town unless you get a
Yeah.
ride or something. But you get what that was a horrible example, but you get what I'm
No,
saying.
it's actually a great example, because what happens is we know we want to go to this thing, go to this place, right? And it's like, I got to get out of here. I just got to get in the car and drive. But as you're driving right out here on the highway near my house, they've decided to do 6 months of construction. Well, I just get in my car and I go to town and I plan how much time it's going to take me to get there, right? And the other day, I get in my car, go down to the highway, and I have to sit and wait because it's one lane of traffic and they're using a pacer car.
Mm,
And that's what happens to all of us is we want out of this pain, we want the promise, we're willing to take that first step, but then detour. Fork in the road. It's not happening. It's taking 40 years, it's taking so long. And our meaning, our lifestyle that we imagine going up, up, up actually goes down for a while as we're figuring it out, you
yeah.
know? And one of my mentors always says, you know, the hardest thing to do is to not become a casualty of the wilderness.
That's a great line. Yeah.
to to not lose sight of your mission just because of all the brush you got to go through and the things you got to chop down and the bugs you got to swat away while you're making it through that jungle to the promised land.
Mm, that's awesome. Yeah. And I've seen too many people go backwards. All right, so back to you. So then you took by the way, having that phone call and that money show up, I've seen that over and over and over, but it only happens for people though that are taking action, that are moving forward. So where we left off early, so you left the hospital, started your own business. Well, recently you were talking about you haven't been looking for um business, but evidently the hospital's been back in touch.
The hospital has been back in touch, and I wish I had really great news for you, but unfortunately we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday, and they had some unexpected people come in the hospital that had to do some business meetings and things like that, and they're like, we need to reschedule. um, but I what I will say about that though is,
Haven't you been doing some stuff for them though? Some
yeah,
contract stuff?
for the last 6 months, they it's really kind of interesting because I'm very outward with my faith, and you would think a hospital, they have to be kind of careful around those types of things. But the thing is, this particular hospital, they really want their employees to be healthy mind, body, and spirit, like we talked about a while ago. And they recognize, their leaders aren't quite stepping up the way that they had hoped that they would step up. And they're like, we need help, and we know some of the things that are going on for these people, and because of your faith, Natalie, and the way you present yourself, we know you're the perfect person to come in and help them with those issues, because they know, I think, really, in that type of a circumstance, it's not about it's taking the position of leadership in the way that Jesus led. And the Bible talks about how, Jesus stands at the door and he knocks, right? He doesn't barge into the house and just take over and this is the way it'll be. He stands at the door and knocks, right?
Yeah.
And so when I'm in that situation in an organization where you can't just come out and be all preachy, preachy, it's like, um, you just knock. You look for those deeper spiritual issues and you just knock on the door a little bit. And some of those leaders open up immediately. Some of them, it's 3 months down the road, and they're like, what do you think about? Right. And they give you
Mhm.
that opportunity. And for some people, it's that it's not a place that they're willing or ready to go. And in that moment, I can explore what's the hurt that's happened that's causing that block, and minister some healing to them without being all churchy, whatever. Just helping them through that. And so
Well,
as
ideally, no
they,
one's ever churchy and preachy in a perfect world. I don't think there's ever a time that we're supposed to be churchy or preachy. Not
I
even in
hear you.
church.
I hear you. I hear you. Um, and it takes all kinds to make the world go round. So, but anyways, going in there and being able to help them with the practical, tangible day-to-day things. How do I put together a meeting agenda? How do I deal with this difficult employee? How do I, all of those types of things, but then also to be able to minister to the heart of the employee and watch their confidence soar, watch them step up into their role and take ownership of that role, watching them leading their teams from a place of, instead of being like, why is this person such a problem employee? I just can't stand working with her, to understanding what makes her tick, and working with them in a way that leads to success for the entire unit.
That's
So
awesome.
it's it's really been joyful work for me, and it's been fulfilling work for me because they're 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 pretty incredible people.
So, do you do a lot of leadership training with your coaching clients?
Right now, I have two clients that I'm doing leadership training with. I think it's infiltrated and infused in everything I do.
Yeah.
Um, but before I really started moving more in the leadership space, I did a lot more of just practical, tangible how to build a business, right? But what I found in that was there kind of came an endpoint. Like I've taught you the nuts and bolts. Like I've taught you how to do your daily minimum sales behaviors. We've crafted your program. We've done, this is your marketing strategy, right? You know those things. They may need refinement, but you know the things. Now it's on you to go out and do that. And that requires discipline, that requires self leadership. And then as you grow, then we can talk about team leadership.
Hmm, that's awesome. Huh, I love it. So, all right, so some other questions.
Yeah.
What just whatever comes to you, just hardcore tips on speaking, sales, marketing, mindset, business success. I feel led to ask you about sales. Any hardcore tips on sales? How can whoever's listening get more sales?
Oh, that's awesome. I actually kind of had a feeling we'd be talking about sales. Um, and sales is a thing that people can kind of get a little weird or squirrely around.
Which
Um,
makes no sense to me anymore. I just don't get why. But yeah, go ahead.
I do get why. And that's just kind of, I don't know if it's maybe one of my superpowers or what, but I usually can see both sides of every situation and then help navigate it.
Yeah.
Um, but Jase, I got to tell you, I really, 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 really do love sales when it's done with integrity. There's a million ways that you can manipulate someone into buying something, whether they need it or not.
Yes. And a lot of people in the coaching industry know a lot of those ways.
Yeah, yeah. You jack with their emotions, you bypass their reasoning power, you make them feel like they're never going to get it if they don't buy your thing, right? We've seen it all. But what I found is that when those tactics are used, people once they come back to sound mind, once their emotions come back down to normal even keel, they want out. Like they ask for refunds, they quit paying, they trash talk you on social media. Um, but it's really when you connect with someone who deeply wants the service, is ready for it, can pay for it, and or is willing to do what it takes to pay for it. And they're not going to be, homeless in 2 weeks when that first payment is due, right? Those are your best clients. But what I found is we spend tons of money and time and energy studying the psychology of the buyer, right? We want to understand what makes them tick and how we can get more buyers. But how much time and money and energy do we spend studying the ones that don't stick,
Hmm.
the ones that back out? Probably pretty little in comparison, right? Um, I've been in communities where, somebody wants to back out and oh, they're just a tire kicker. They'll never make it. You talk bad about them, you label them. But how often does that person take a look at their role in it? What did I miss in that qualifying conversation? What could I have done better to serve them? Do I need to change something in my program? Do I need to change something in my offer? But most of the time, we don't do that. Most of the time, people are just brush them off and on to the next person. And I gotta say, Jase, I think that that is one of the strengths of this company, of your company, is that when you have feedback from somebody about what they'd like to see more of or what could have made it better, you genuinely take those on and listen to it. And sometimes things get changed, sometimes they don't. Sometimes things are just left field ideas, but you do care about what your clients are experiencing and you do want them to have the best experience possible. So, and I just want to share that back to you that is, I think, rare.
Hmm. Thanks.
in a,
You know,
get all you can economy.
it's been interesting because I've been thinking about something lately. So, in our company, our main speaker training program is called Black Belt Speaker Training, and that's how to rock out your 1 hour. And then we have an elevation up from there called Unlimited, where they learn how to run events and do backroom sales and like the next step. And every year I'll have at least one meeting with our black belts. How could we have served you better? What could we? It was really interesting to me. A couple years ago, I got all these ideas, and I did it like halfway through their coaching year, and I remember this one person who had a really loud voice. We need this. And I did everything they asked, and they showed up for like no, none of it, 2%. And I was so frustrated. So maybe this is me venting, maybe someone. I also want to share this as encouragement for whoever's listening to this or watching this at home. It's a dance between what you know is right, talking to them, serving them, and then people could tell you, "Oh, I want exactly this," and you still cannot expect them to actually do it.
Yep,
It
yep.
can be a
Well,
little
and I think we
demanding.
have to have wisdom and discernment in that as well around one data point isn't a trend.
Yeah, true. Well, something I'm really stoked about though is people we've been hiring lately. We're getting AI coming in, and I know AI is this magical catch-all phrase. Well, we're using AI intentionally to be able to track where our people are now, where they're getting stuck, and what we can do to help them get unstuck, or what their pain point is, or what their positive point is. Just more, it's really just I think the way we're going to be using AI in a lot of ways is how to sift and sort data so we can be more agile and on the spot for our people. Then we're also going to use AI separately to help people write their presentations, which I'm really stoked about. That there could be, it's actually Natalie. I didn't tell you this. Um, Yesterday I had this, or Tuesday night in my leadership program, I had this epiphany. Years ago, when I was doing the personal growth and sales life tigers, right? I had a seminar company from like 2004 to 2007. It was all about personal growth and sales. And I wanted to give people like an intake questionnaire that the questions would change and then it would go, okay, based on how you answer this, this is your area of focus that'll be most but I was like, how do I build a website? Maybe if they click yes, it takes them to this. And then I couldn't figure it all out. And I just dropped it. But it hit me that I was like, oh my gosh, these ideas I had 15 years ago, I could finally do them today. And I'm like, so stoked. I'm sure there was a way to work it out back then with enough money and time, whatever. And now I'm just like, we could bring people in and give them a questionnaire and find out truly where they're weakest and help them on that, and then where they're strongest and help them on that so that they can actually start making money and crushing things out. So I'm
Yes.
super stoked. By the way, we're talking about client progress. So something that's in my space that we're navigating right now. I had a client that wanted to talk to us yesterday and they came to our 5 day personal growth intensive. And I think they've realized, oh, they have another path in mind for their life. So I think they want to leave the program. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? It sounds like I did my job by helping you realize
Yeah.
where you really want to go. And you signed a freaking contract, pay your contract. If you want to ask for a buyout, we can talk about that. But don't just, oh, let me out. Why do people think they can just drop coaching programs because it's gotten hard or difficult or something? Why, Natalie, why do people think they can just do that? I do not get that. Maybe you can enlighten me so that I do not get so triggered by it. It pisses me off, and I would never do that. Like, I'm in a program right now, a different like mastermind thing, and there's a certain charge per month, and I'm like, am I getting my money's worth or not? But it's designed as you pay and you belong, and if you don't, you just quit paying. And so I'm really thinking, maybe I'll drop, maybe I'll stay, but that's within the contract. Other coaching programs I've been in, I would never just drop. And I remember when you're talking about making your thing, the coach that we met through, I had 2016, my my I was speaking at this event. It was a big event I spoke at every year, and I started doing speaker training, and I had people that were speaking on that stage that I met through that community. And so I was there speaking and selling, and then I was supporting them, and they got a standing ovation. They rocked it out. But my ex-girlfriend was watching my dog, and she had a seizure in the car and wrecked my truck. She almost had her leg amputated, and my dog almost died. And I realized, like, whoa, what am I waiting for? I need to step up and go for it. And I signed up. I had a personal coach that year. I joined a 1 year leadership program with Landmark, and I joined a business coaching program. I was like, I'm going for this thing. And I spent a lot of money on other business entity stuff. So, supplies. And so, I remember this 1 month, like it was really tight. And I was like, I don't know if I can make it. Do I need to drop out? Do I need to back out? But I was like, no, I'm gonna make it happen. And sure enough, I made it happen. And then I remember we had a 3 day event coming up, and the guy AJ that I was doing events with at the time goes, "What are we gonna sell?" And I remember saying, I've been thinking about this thing, black belt speaker training. And I remember thinking, I don't know if people get the name or not, but it's been ringing in my head. And here's what the structure would look like, and here's how we'd put it together. And I needed to make big sales because I had to pay for this coaching. I wanted to make big sales to pay for this coaching. And I don't think I did black belt out of this divine download. I think I created black belt out of I needed to pay for this freaking coaching program. And so I needed something bigger and better to sell. And when I put together black belt, it became a system that was like that. And that was my highest sales. That next event was my highest sales I had done in that was 2016, probably since like 2006, 2005, since I've left. Oh, can I tell you another part of this? Did I ever tell you this? So there's this guy Charles, and Charles wanted being this so many stories I could tell. Real quick story. I went to this Christian business. Did I ever tell you the story about how Charles connected with Mike Crow?
I I
Or
don't
what I
know.
learned
Tell it
before
anyways.
marketing. So I see this thing about this Christian coffee get together thing, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go. And I can't believe how many times in my life I've said I'm gonna go to something that I feel like don't go. Like, ugh, I don't want to go. But I make myself go because I said I go. So I go. And they have this bin, like a big rubber bin, like a Rubbermaid thing, full of CDs and books and tapes and stuff. And I look in there and one of my trainings is in there. Like it was, I think it was $1 Million Language. It was the CD and the workbook. I think I have it here somewhere. Yeah, I do. And so it was, or it might have been personality types. I think it was this workbook and a CD. And I was so offended. I'm like, somebody didn't love my stuff enough to keep it on their shelf. They donated it. Oh, and I remember it going out loud. I go, oh, that's mine. And then I was like in the space of a fence, and this woman's next to me, and she goes, "That's yours?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, that was really good. Do you have more?" I went, "Yeah." And
Oh,
I
thank
just
you.
finished, like, I had just pressed a whole bunch of new sets, and I'm like, "Yeah, I got a whole thing. It's $500." And she's like, "Well, bring it next week." I'm like, okay. And so the next week I brought him, and after the meeting, we got my trunk open, and I'm selling her a CD set. I'm like, we're doing a deal, and right, and and I learned like, it's great if people pass it around. Like that's marketing. Put that digitally out there, let people experience you. They'll be more likely to buy from you. So then this guy Charles walking by, and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And we explained it to him, and she goes, "This his stuff's really great." Da, da, da. And he goes, "I'll take a set." I'm like, you will? And this is when I was coming out of like a really rough time financially. So anyway, $1,000. I was selling them for 495 at the time. It was like they were brand new. And I think that's why I was offended too. It was so new that someone had donated that fast. Anyway, so I meet Charles, and then Charles introduces me to this guy, Mike Crow, and then I wound up speaking on Mike's stage for years. So before this 3 day event, when I created Black Belt, it's like literally the day before, Charles is like, let's go to Benny Hinn. The guy who slays people in the spirit.
Yes.
I know nothing about Benny Hinn. Um, at all. I don't all I know is this. We go to the thing and I have literally like $1,000 in my account, maybe 1,047. And this guy gets on stage before Benny Hinn and he's talking about, I believe there's people in here that are going to donate $1,000. And I'm like, but here's what I got too. I don't know what Benny Hinn does with money. I don't know where he goes it. I know though when I was giving it, I was giving it to God. Well, it's already God's money. I was giving it in pursuit of what I believe God wanted. And I gave my last $1,000. I don't think I've ever told you the story. And
You haven't.
I gave my last thousand, and it was literally the night before the event started, and that event we did $67,000 in sales, which was my highest sales in I don't know how long. And and we were off and running. And I think planting that seed and going like that with my money helped. And also the reason I brought this up too was we were talking about going forward. I created Black Belt out of having to pay for that stuff. If I hadn't been in that place of needing to pay something off, I don't know if I might have just we were just selling like power days and stuff. I don't know if I would have really done it. So
Yeah. So, couple things for you out of this. Um, a book. I don't know if you've ever read it. Um, I haven't read it yet. It's on my list. You can probably get it on Audible because I know you love to listen to books more so than read them. Called The Bait of Satan.
the bait of Satan. Wow, that's a
The
title.
Bait of Satan. Yes.
Okay.
So I highly recommend you check that one out. I'm going to be listening to it soon as well. And I think it will address some of what's going on there. And going back to what you were talking about the particular client, and just knowing, only knowing what you've shared with me in communication back and forth. I have not heard that they're bailing. What I've heard is they've had an epiphany and that they have greater clarity around what they're pursuing. And so I think this is one of those moments. Jase, tell me a little bit, because you can articulate this better than I can, but I've listened to you talk about it for years and I've seen you use it in really, really hard times in life. It's your training with Aikido, right? When the attack comes, how do you respond to that through Aikido?
So I will say this, I have not consistently practiced for 7 years now, and I can feel the missing of it because um, right now my inclination is to resist, which is not Aikido. In Aikido, ideally, we just flow, we do a little sidestep and then flow with it, and then we can do something with it. What I love about the practice of Aikido, the physical practice, is like if I was practicing Aikido right now, right? And I had a class tonight and or last night or whatever, and I was dealing with this client, it would show up in my practice. I would be hard on my partner, and probably like I could just picture Senpai Rick, like he was our highest rank student. I can picture him going, Chase, you're really heavy tonight. And I tell you, oh man, I'm dealing with this thing. Oh, all right. And so I learned to be easier with Rick, and then I would be easier and not and not resisting doesn't mean they just get their way. It means we just don't resist, emotionally don't resist, and just be with the communication, which is a lot of landmark training I've had their communication courses, just being with the communication. Yeah, something shifted in me in the last couple of years where I have not, my proficiency to just be with people's communication has gone down, and I have, for whatever reason, started resisting more. So in a perfect world of what we ought to do, just be with it. And a lot of times when you're just with it, then the energy of it dissipates and goes away, and then it just opens up a new space. This is actually great because I was going over with Danella, who's our event manager for our event next week, about teaching objections, and I need to make a note to put that into the syllabus as you're talking.
Well, while you're doing that, while you're adding that to the run of show for next week, uh, that's what I hear with this client. It's not that they want out. It's not that, you know, their expectations haven't been met. It's they've you've given light to their dream. They now have clarity around that, and they want to know, what can we create from this place that will serve that new vision, that new dream. And I think, just because you've been vulnerably sharing, it's triggered that spirit of offense in you a little bit. This should be good enough. Why are you doing this? You made a contract, da 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 da. rather than going to that place of co-creation and how can we make this amazing for you in the time that you have left in this program, because there are things that this person needs in our program, and I'm happy to share those with you coming up, that it doesn't matter what type of speaking they're doing, they're going to need this training.
Oh yeah, dynamic
Okay.
delivery is going to be amazing for them. I mean, our
Yes.
training, whether someone's doing a keynote or selling from stage, is phenomenal. And if they're going to keynote, the focus of the rest of their gear is a lot more on delivery, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic for them. I think my resistance too is I haven't experienced so many people not paying as we've got had experience in the last year, and I understand that might be, and I want to share that authentically, vulnerably on this podcast because other coaches may be dealing with that, and as opposed to just being with though, I really let it trigger me, take me sideways. So that's something. Now, talk about the inner work. That's something for me to do to get flat on that. So it quits triggering me. Otherwise, I'll keep attracting it and manifesting it. I think I'll take that into my session with Shiraz next week. Just so you guys listening know, we have people on our team who are specifically about helping to clear out the mental and emotional and subconscious stuff. I'll also take that into prayer to work on that as well. All right, so let me ask you some other questions while we got time, Nat. Let me take some shifts. Where are you the least quote unquote Christian in your business? Not that you want to be, just, where are you least great, for lack of a better phrase?
Oh gosh, where am I? Well, I'm trying to come up with something that's deeper and more meaningful here. Because the truth of it is, Jase, that's something that I wrestle with, and something that I've had to do a lot of work around is I always feel like a failure. I
Mm,
always have it felt like what I do isn't good enough. It's not good enough, it's not right enough. I'll never meet expectations. I'll never. And there came a point in my life, and it really was only within probably the last 2 or 3 years, where I took that to the Lord and I was like, you got to help me with this because I am about to self-destruct. And he's like, baby girl, you got to understand, you're enough for me.
mm,
And as long as you stay close to me, and as long as you do what I ask you to do, everything's going to be just fine.
mm,
And I used to get so caught up in it almost taking on an identity of whatever work that I'm doing, that was the thing, right? Because the Bible tells us when we do work, we're to do it unto the Lord. And so, of course, I want to do a good job, and I want to, have people succeed that are working with me, and I want them to enjoy working with me. But it almost became an identity where it had to be that way. And if they weren't having success, it was because I was failing.
mm, mm.
And he's like, no, you actually, in the last 2 weeks, we had to have this conversation again. And Jase, I'll tell you, I don't know if you know this. So this is my letter. It got delayed in the mail or something, but I just got it um from one of our events that we did.
Oh, with the washer? Yeah.
This is my washer from the event, and from the event, we always share something like a breakthrough that we want, or whatever. And on my washer, it says, "Let go and go."
Mm,
Now, at this event, is also where I was on team. I was, helping run the event. And in the middle of the event, I get a call from my son who's in the emergency room with a broken nose and is going to require surgery. So I had to let go and go in that moment. And it was like God was telling me, this is what we're focusing on right now. 2 weeks ago, we had that same conversation. Natalie, you're making this particular success your own when it's not all up to you.
mm,
There are things that are out of your control. You be faithful, you do your work, you leave the results up to me. Let go and go and do what I've asked you to do.
mm,
And so I think it takes constant awareness, if you will. not become so attached that I put the thing above the calling.
Isn't it crazy how much better everything works when we're not so attached and gripping it so tightly? It is crazy. So this is this what Natalie's pointing to is that dynamic life, we pick a word and we stamp it on one side and or a phrase like 1 year it's lead, 1 year it was leap, 1 year was trust, 1 year it was whatever. This one, our word was make magic, and then we give it to people on a necklace and they wear it all weekend during the 5 days to anchor, and then on the last day they pick a word or a phrase and we stamp it on the other side. We have a one of our graduates here in Boise, Linda, does it, and then we mail it back to people. So that's what Natalie's referring to. Mine was complete, that I am complete. That was my word for the year. And what's really interesting is a couple years ago, I think I picked the word dad or father, and that was the year Betsy and I got pregnant, and last year was wealthy, and that we're working on that one. So it's good. Cool. All right, last question before we go, because we're about time. What have you learned about being the right mentor and choosing the right mentor?
Mm. The right mentor, the right mentor is going to make you or break you. I truly believe that. I've
That really
experienced that.
happened to you big time.
Huh?
Without naming names, that really happened to you big time.
It did happen to me big time.
Okay.
I on both ends of it. And so, yeah, without naming names, I will say that I got involved with a particular mentor, and they were one of those people that their sales tactic was to make you believe you couldn't do anything without their presence and without their help. And just that overarching narrative of being in that type of an environment where you're not smart enough, you can't do this, creating total dependency on them. It was almost like setting up Munchausen by no, it's Stockholm syndrome,
Yeah.
where you know you're kidnapped and you're taken out, and then you are so dependent on that person for your survival that you actually think you care about them, right? I remember waking up one morning and legitimately I wasn't sure if I could get out of bed without having this person tell me whether I could get out of bed or not. And that sounds ridiculous. That sounds ludicrous. But I had gotten so beat down, so berated, lost so much confidence in myself that I didn't even know if I could get out of bed or not on my own.
Mm. Wow.
And it has taken several years. I feel like I'm finally I'm finally not just back to who I used to be. I think I'm better than I used to be in a lot of ways, but it took years to get back there
Mm.
because once the core of who you are is fractured, you think about somebody that's had a spinal cord accident,
Mm.
right? And they lay in bed for months or years as all of those nerves start to reconnect, and it takes a long time, and all of a sudden they can start feeling again, and then they can start wiggling their feet, but they can't just jump up and run just because their nerves have reinnervated. It takes rebuilding of the muscle, it takes regaining balance, it takes coordination, it takes and it's the same thing when and I mean I take ownership of it because I stayed in that environment much longer than I should have, but I was fearful that I couldn't do it without that person. um I allowed them to completely destroy my self-worth.
Mm.
And so it God is good and God uses it for his glory, and he's doing that day after day after day. And what I've learned about working with people and personal growth and all of those spiritual development has come out of that. And I feel like um there are moments in life where you don't really see the divine hand upon it until you can look back later. But I know that divine intervention happened when I met you at that event.
Thank you.
Because I don't think that there are many people that I would have trusted to do the deep work that needed to be done. And I don't think that there aren't many people that I would have given access like what I gave to you at that point in time of my life. And you used it for good. You helped restore my confidence. You helped build me back up. You showed me what was possible. You stretched me beyond what I thought was possible. You showed me what it's like to just get out there and do something, even if you're scared to death to fail at it. And it's not the end of the world if it's not done perfectly. So I really do see the hand of God on that moment and that season of my life.
So what would you tell someone who's looking for a mentor?
I
One, I
think
think I would say, personally, unless you're like joining the military, don't invest in mentors who break you down. I mean, they might need to break down lies and strongholds of the enemy, which is not you, but not people who will break you down to get control over you, which is that sales
yes,
tactic that they used.
for sure, for sure. I think also having a mentor who is willing to do the work themselves, not just this is my prescribed methodology, but they're willing to do that deep work themselves. They're willing to be vulnerable. When you come to them with a problem, they don't just react and tell you how you're bad and you're wrong. And if you just understood what they understood, like they're like, let me see if there's any truth in that.
Mm.
Right? Where does this come? They're willing to they have enough humility to at least consider that maybe something's off. Maybe there's a better way.
Awesome. Cool. Nat, thanks so much for being here with us today. You are awesome. How can people find you, get in touch with you, all that?
The fastest, easiest way is on Facebook at Natalie Lavelock, or you can go to my website at
Did you just
www.natalielavelock.com.
did you just give out the www?
I did, and I can tell you some trippy stuff about www too, but we'll save that for another time.
Ooh, cliffhanger. All right, I was talking while you give it. So it's natalielavelock.com.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Nat.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me today on To the Promised Land podcast. If you're ready to grow your impact, master your message, and become the kind of speaker people can't ignore, head on over to our website, to thepromisedlandpodcast.com. That's where the real transformation begins. The links are all in the description.